Welcome to Simple English for Life. Ready to improve your English? Here, we learn with stories, slow, clear, and fun. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the journey. Today's story is about a famous university, a government disagreement, and a lot of money.
1. Introduction. Let's start with a name you probably know, Harvard University. Harvard is one of the most famous universities in the world. It's located in Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Boston, in the United States. Founded in 1636, Harvard is also one of the oldest colleges in America. Over the years, Harvard has built a powerful reputation. Many U.S. presidents, Nobel Prize winners, and famous writers have studied there. Names like Barack Obama, Mark Zuckerberg, and Natalie Portman are all connected to Harvard. But Harvard is not just about famous people. It's also known for its strong research in medicine, business, law, and science. Its work helps people around the world by finding new medicines, improving technology, and solving important problems. However, today, Harvard is in the middle of a very serious conflict, a big disagreement with the U.S. government. They have different opinions about important ideas like free speech and equality. Because of these disagreements, something shocking happened. The U.S. government decided to stop giving billions of dollars to Harvard. This decision could change Harvard's future, affecting students, teachers, and important research projects. How did it get to this point? Let's find out step by step. 2. What the government asked. First, let's talk about what the government wanted Harvard to change. During Donald Trump's presidency, government officials sent Harvard a formal letter called a compliance demand. This was not just advice. It was a list of actions Harvard was expected to take or risk losing government support. One main concern was anti-Semitism, unfair treatment toward Jewish students and staff. Some incidents happened on campus, like protests and hateful speech, and the government believed Harvard was not doing enough to stop it. But the letter didn't stop there. The government also demanded Harvard close its diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) programs. These programs try to make the university more welcoming to students and teachers from different backgrounds. For example, helping first-generation college students or supporting minorities. The government argued that admissions and hiring should be purely merit-based, meaning based only on talent and skills, without considering race, gender, or background. Another demand was even more unusual. The government wanted Harvard to collect information about the private opinions of students and teachers, especially their views on diversity issues. This raised big concerns about privacy and freedom of thought. They also asked Harvard to ban face masks during protests. Many students had worn masks during pro-Palestinian protests to protect their identities. The government believed masks made protests harder to control and could hide illegal behavior. Finally, the government wanted Harvard to punish students who joined protest camps, to change school leadership, and to review how it admitted international students. Officials worried that international students might bring political problems from other countries into the U.S. Altogether, it was a long, detailed list, and Harvard had to respond carefully. 3. Harvard says no. So what did Harvard do? After careful meetings and long discussions, the university made a bold decision. It said no. The president of Harvard explained the reasons clearly. First, Harvard said these demands would seriously hurt free speech on campus. At a university, students and teachers must feel safe to share different ideas, even if those ideas are unpopular or controversial. If speech is limited, true learning becomes impossible. Second, Harvard worried about independence. Universities must make their own choices about education and research. If the government could control speech, admissions, and leadership, Harvard feared it would lose its ability to think freely and innovate. The university also said the government's demands violated the U.S. Constitution, especially the First Amendment, which protects freedom of speech and thought. For these reasons, Harvard rejected the demands, even though they knew the consequences could be serious. 4. The money stops. After Harvard said no, the government acted quickly. They froze, meaning they stopped, a huge amount of funding. The total amount frozen was about $2.3 billion. Most of this, about $2.2 billion, was for research grants. This money supports scientists working on medical breakthroughs, new technologies, environmental studies, and more. Another $60 million was for government contracts. These are special agreements where Harvard agrees to complete research or projects for the government. Without this funding, Harvard faces big problems. Research projects may be delayed or canceled. Students who work in labs might lose their jobs. Plans for new discoveries might have to stop. This money also supports daily university operations, like maintaining libraries, labs, and equipment. The government said that because Harvard receives public money, it must fully follow civil rights laws. When Harvard refused the demands, the government froze the funds as a way to pressure the university. 5. Why the government acted. Now, you might wonder, why did the government feel it needed to act so strongly? A special team inside the government, called the Office for Civil Rights, did an investigation at Harvard. They reviewed emails, event records, complaints from students, and even visited the campus. After months of research, the team decided that Harvard was not fully protecting students from discrimination, especially Jewish students. They also said Harvard acted like it was too elite or too important to follow the same civil rights rules that apply to other schools. Because Harvard accepts billions of dollars in public funding, the government argued it must obey the same laws as everyone else. No special treatment. By freezing the money, the government wanted to send a strong message not just to Harvard, but to all universities in America. 6. Why Harvard said no. On the other side, Harvard had deep reasons for standing firm. The university said the most important issue was independence. If a university cannot make its own choices about research, teaching, and admissions, it cannot truly serve students or society. Another big issue was free speech. Harvard argued that the government's demands would limit open discussion and debate, key parts of education. They believed that even uncomfortable or controversial ideas must be allowed on campus. Harvard also said the government was asking for powers that go beyond the law, checking private opinions, banning masks, punishing peaceful protesters. These actions could create fear and silence important voices. For Harvard, it was about more than just money. It was about defending principles, even when the cost was high. 7. Students and other schools. Of course, this conflict didn't just affect Harvard's leaders. Students were deeply impacted too. Many worried about losing research funding for their projects. Graduate students, who depend on research grants for their studies and salaries, faced real uncertainty. There were also concerns about fewer internships, fewer job opportunities, and delays in important scientific work. Across the campus, conversations buzzed. Would the money come back? Would programs be cut? Would this hurt Harvard's reputation worldwide? Harvard wasn't alone in facing pressure. Other top schools like the University of Pennsylvania, Penn, Brown University, and Princeton also received warning letters from the government. Some of them also lost funding. It became clear this was not just a Harvard story. It was a national issue about universities and freedom. 8. What this means. So, what can we learn from this story? This situation shows a very big and difficult fight. A fight between government rules and university freedom. The government says schools that receive public money must follow national civil rights laws. Universities say they must protect free thinking and independence, or else they cannot do their job properly. Finding the right balance is very hard. How do you protect students from unfair treatment, but also protect free speech and open debate? Billions of dollars are involved. Important research that could help cure diseases or stop climate change might be delayed. Students, teachers, and researchers are caught in the middle, waiting to see what happens next. The battle between Harvard and the U.S. government is not over yet. The future remains uncertain, and many other universities are watching closely. This story reminds us freedom, fairness, and education are all connected, and sometimes they can come into conflict. Listening practice questions. 1. Where is Harvard University located? A. New York City. B. Cambridge, Massachusetts. C. Los Angeles, California. 1. Where is Harvard University located? Answer. B. Cambridge, Massachusetts. Explanation. Harvard is in Cambridge, a city close to Boston in the U.S. state of Massachusetts. 2. Why did the U.S. government stop giving money to Harvard? A. Harvard had too many students. B. Harvard didn't protect free speech. C. Harvard didn't follow civil rights laws. 2. Why did the U.S. government stop giving money to Harvard? Answer. C. Harvard didn't follow civil rights laws. Explanation. The government believed Harvard wasn't doing enough to fight discrimination, especially anti-Semitism. 3. What was one thing the government asked Harvard to ban during protests? A. Banners. B. Face masks. C. Signs. 3. What was one thing the government asked Harvard to ban during protests? Answer. B. Face masks. Explanation. Protesters often wore masks to hide their identities. The government wanted Harvard to stop that. 4. What are DEI programs about? A. Teaching math. B. Helping students from different backgrounds feel welcome. C. Organizing sports competitions. 4. What are DEI programs about? Answer. B. Helping students from different backgrounds feel welcome. Explanation. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. These programs support fairness and respect for everyone. 5. How much government funding was frozen? A. About $2.3 million. B. About $230 million. C. About $2.3 billion. 5. How much government funding was frozen? Answer. C. About $2.3 billion. Explanation. It was a huge amount of money, mainly for research grants. 6. What was Harvard's main reason for saying no to the government? A. Money problems. B. Protecting free speech and independence. C. Wanting more students. 6. What was Harvard's main reason for saying no to the government? Answer: B. Protecting free speech and independence. Explanation: Harvard believed the government's demands were unfair and broke the rules of free speech. 7. Which other universities were mentioned as also facing pressure? A. Stanford and MIT. B. Princeton, Brown, and Penn. C. UCLA and NYU. 7. Which other universities were mentioned as also facing pressure? Answer: B. Princeton, Brown, and Penn. Explanation: These Ivy League schools also faced demands from the government. 8. What big question does this story show? A. How to get better grades. B. How to balance freedom and fairness. C. How to build bigger schools. 8. What big question does this story show? Answer: B. How to balance freedom and fairness. Explanation: The situation is about finding the right balance between protecting speech and stopping unfair treatment.